Hey everyone, happy holidays from Wealthy Boss. My name is Mariah and I've designed a special yoga sequence for you today that will help you unwind from long travel. So whether you've been on a plane, whether you've been in the car for a long time, this sequence is going to focus on opening up your hip flexors, releasing tension in your low back, opening up the scapula from holding your arms up from maybe driving a steering wheel. And it's also going to include some inversions, which are great for boosting your immune system. Now, I actually designed this sequence to not have to have any type of props or even a yoga mat. So you might hear me say the word mat, but really I'm actually going to practice this without a mat, and I designed it just in case you didn't have a chance to pack your yoga mat into your carry-on luggage so that you can do this yoga workout completely without anything other than maybe a blanket. Are you ready? Let's get started. We'll begin standing in mountain pose, pressing the feet into the earth, feeling the crown of the head lifting up towards the sky, creating space between the vertebrae as you sink those shoulders away from the ears, taking in some nice deep inhales through the nose, and letting that breath come out through the nose. A couple more times. Feeling those lungs inflate with every inhale. With every exhale, controlling that steady out breath, making room for more oxygen. And on your next inhale, let's shine that heart forward, lifting your gaze slightly as you take arms apart. And exhale, we'll round forward, standing cat-cow. We'll take a few cycles of that at your own pace. Waking up that spine after sitting for a long period of time. And now let's step wide into our goddess pose. So spining your range here, and then extending arms out as we straighten into the knees. And we'll just repeat that and make that a little bit of a standing flow. Bringing some fresh blood and oxygenation into the tissues. You want to move around that stuck energy, waking up the muscles that have been turned off while we were on a plane or in the car. Moving with your breath. Find a couple more. And then the next time that you bend your knees, I'd like you to take your hands to your thighs and take right shoulder all the way down beneath you, really pressing into the thigh to get a deep shoulder stretch. Also lengthening in the spine as you do this, opening in the hips. And we'll take it over to the other side. Really press that leg away from you to deepen into it. And we'll take that 2 more times on each side. Maybe seeing if you can sink just a little bit lower each and every time. Good, last time on each side. Working out all the kinks from your travel time. Good, now from here, we're gonna sink really low. So you may have to adjust the position of your feet. We're coming into garland pose or malasana. So the toes are turned out wider than the heels, and you want this to feel comfortable on your knees. If taking your hips below the knees doesn't feel comfortable for you, if you're feeling a little too tight there, you could take a pillow and place it underneath your bum, just like a bird sitting on an egg. But if you don't need that, then just let those hips hang really heavy. Taking hands together, pressing elbows into the knees to lengthen in your spine, opening further into the hips. Finding that deep, steady breath again, breathing in and out through the nose, purifying the blood. Good. And then when you're ready, your hands are going to come to the earth. As you step the right foot back, you're going to make your way into a low lunge. So that right knee comes all the way down onto the ground, and the top of that right foot is also flat on the ground. So the toes are not tucked, the toes are free. And if this is at all uncomfortable for you, if you are working on hard floor instead of carpet, you may want to place a blanket or a flat pillow underneath that knee. And then from there, if it's comfortable, if not, then just stay right where you are with those hands on either side of the foot. But if you want it a little bit more, hands would come to the knee. Make sure that knee is stacked right above the ankle. We don't want those knees that knee coming forward at the toes. We want to make sure that knee stays nice and happy. So this is a great stretch and release for the hip flexors. Whenever we sit, the hip flexors contract and grow really tight. So we want to make sure that we add some length to this. This is also one of the best ways to help relieve low back pain, because if your hip flexors are tight from sitting, that can move your pelvis into kind of a wonky tilt, which can tug on the back. So it's a great way to undo all the bad things we do for our posture by sitting. Breathing deeply into this. This can be very intense, so just take it to your level. And if you'd like to add a rotation, it's completely optional. You would take that hand to the inside of the foot and reach the opposite hand up to the sky. So you're rotating your heart towards that front leg. Every inhale lengthens you, every exhale twists you, drawing belly in to create more room to twist. And then taking both hands to the inside of that front foot, allowing the left knee to open out to the side of the mat. So the inner edge or arch of the foot will lift up off the mat, rolling onto the outer blade of that foot, and just allowing that knee to sink as low as it would like to go towards the outside of the mat. You can stay here with long arms, or if you're ready for a little bit more intensity, you can come all the way down onto your forearms. Keep a nice flat back though. Keep the back of the neck long so we can keep the back happy. This is great for releasing the outer hips, and again is so beneficial for your low back as well. Should feel yummy. You shouldn't feel like you're having to cringe. If you're forcing your way onto your forearms and it's not comfortable for you, just come all the way back onto long arms. This should feel really nice, like a reward, not like a punishment. Good. Now, if you are on your forearms, let's return to straight arms. You're going to take the left hand to the outside of the left foot and start to shift your hips back as you straighten into the front leg, flexing into that front foot, coming into our half split, taking it back only as low as you need to go for your hamstrings. If your hamstrings are tight from sitting in a car or on a plane, you may not go very far back, and that's okay. You're thinking about drawing that left hip back, that right hip forward. Taking care to maintain a really straight, long spine here. And then gently bending into the front knee again, just able to get your hands to the inside of that foot and start to toe heel, gently sweeping that foot behind you, returning to all fours. Let's try that sequence on the other side, shall we? So let's bump that right foot up. Make sure you're stepping far enough forward so that as you shift hips forward, your knee is right on top of your ankle, not on top of your toes. So I've got a very deep bend in that back hip. My hips are much further forward than that back knee. Left knee is all the way on the mat, top of the foot on the ground. And then from here, if I wanted to take my hands to my knees, I would, but if that feels too intense, just keep your hands down by either side of the foot in a nice low lunge. Good. Anjaneyasana is a fantastic cure for cranky hips, for low back pain. breathing into it. And whenever you're ready, if you took the twist on the other side, now's the time to find it on this side. So pulling belly inward creates more space for that rotation, thinking about lengthening as you breathe in and twisting as you breathe out. Seeing if you can maintain that slow, steady, controlled breath, even if it feels a little bit constricted with the rotation. Finding 2 more deep breaths here. And then returning both hands to the inside of the foot will allow that right knee to start to open out to the side, lifting in the inner edge of that right foot. You can stay here or you can take it down further onto forearms. Just stay long in the back, long in the neck. Soothing every tight and dense area of your body through the fluidity of your breath, through the release and surrender of the muscles and the connective tissue. Now if you're on forearms, it's time to come onto long arms again. Taking a hand to either side of the foot this time, we're going to flex into that front foot as we straighten the leg out, sending the hips back into our half split, keeping the spine nice and straight, finding length in the backs of the legs, the hamstrings, the calves. And then slowly bending that front knee one more time, taking both hands to the inside of the foot. We start to toe heel that foot to the side, and then carefully, since we've just deeply stretched the muscles in the legs, we want to take our time to return to all fours. Beautiful. From here, we're going to cross the legs, rolling back onto our seat, and then taking the legs forward. So we're going to flex into the feet. Knees can be bent if you need. If you're still feeling pretty tight in the hamstrings, then you're welcome to bend into the knees. Otherwise, we're going to start to lean forward. Now, the main thing that I care about in this forward fold is that your back stays really straight. There's a temptation to want to get a little bit competitive here and try to get our nose towards our knees just by folding or rounding in the back. And that really doesn't do anything good for our backs of our legs. In fact, it just creates stress on the spine by adding that gravitational pull between the vertebrae. So we want to think about nice and long spine, which may mean that our head doesn't get as close to our shins, but that's totally okay because we're doing what this pose is intended to do, which is to stretch into our hamstrings, which we accomplish just by bending from the hips, not by rounding into the back. So releasing any of the ego that wants to get the head closer to the legs and instead give your body what it needs instead of giving your ego what it needs. Again, finding that deep, fluid, silky smooth breath in case we've lost it. And then gently easing your way back up. Now we're going to be moving into a fairly intense pose, halasana or plow pose. Plow pose can feel amazing for tight backs, tight shoulders, your levator scapula. If you've been driving cross country, have been stuck in an elevated position, this is a great way to lengthen them out. But there are some contraindications for this pose. So if you have any acute back issues like a slipped disc or sciatica, if you're pregnant, just want to skip this one and maybe take a child's pose instead. But if you're feeling like you want to give it a try, we're going to come all the way onto our back, pressing the backs of the shoulders and the backs of the arms into the mat. The legs are going to come high over us, and then we're going to use our hands to really press into the ground as we start to lift the hips overhead, taking heels behind us.
Now maybe the feet will touch the ground, maybe they won't. We're not going to force it. We're going to allow that back to open up naturally as it wants to. This is also a very purposeful pose for unwinding from holiday travel because we're in an inversion. Our heart is higher than our head, which is very stimulating to the lymphatic system, which is important particularly if you've been in an airplane and exposed to a lot of different germs. We want to make sure we're really boosting our immune system, giving our bodies every chance against catching those colds and flu that kind of come with the season. From here, if you wanted to interlace fingers behind, getting even deeper, the stretch into the shoulders. Make sure your neck still feels free here. It should not feel crunched. And then one vertebrae at a time, drawing belly in so you can control the movement. Gently sinking those hips back down towards the earth. Let's go ahead and bend into the knees. So knees bend in towards your chest. Give it a nice little pull inward. And then from there, you're going to lengthen the legs all the way onto the mat, and we're coming into fish pose. So for this one, you want to slide your palms face down underneath your body. From there, bending into the elbows, you're lifting the heart up, releasing the back of the neck long and the top of the head to the mat. Now we want to make sure that the top of the head is touching but is not pressing into the mat. So it's just barely making contact so that we can traction the vertebrae in the cervical spine, creating more space between those vertebrae. This is a beautiful pose for opening up in the throat chakra. I absolutely love it. And then very carefully returning a little bit of strength into that neck and then releasing the back of the neck long. Gazes just straight up towards the sky now. And then gently drawing knees in towards your chest. I'd like you to roll over to one side and then carefully press yourself up into a seated position. We're going to be moving over to the wall for the rest of the practice. We want to be working, again, as we mentioned with this previous pose, inversions are a fantastic way to improve the body's immune system, which is important this time of year in particular. So our neck stretches are actually all going to be done at the wall so that we can take advantage of that beautiful effect of having the inversion added into our stretches. So we're going to start with our feet on the wall. Our knees are bent, so the knees are going to be right above the hips, and ankles are right in front of the knees, so at a nice 90-degree angle. And from here, borrowing just a little bit of this practice from Pilates, we're going to take some pelvic tilts here. So the body has a natural curvature underneath the spine that you can feel, right? So from there, I'm going to have you inhale and pull the belly in as you flatten out that little mouse house under your spine. And then exhale, you're going to tilt the pelvis away from you as you exaggerate that arch underneath you. So you're imagining like opening up the little tunnel for, I don't know, maybe for Santa to fly under. I guess that doesn't really make sense. I don't think Santa flies under tunnels, but if he needed to, you're opening it up. Maybe he does. And then pull the belly in as you flatten the low back. Exhale. Find that arch, sending that pelvis away. We're creating some mobility in the pelvis here, opening up mobility in the spine. So good for your low back. And the more you press your feet into the wall, the more benefit you're getting here in the low back. Good, let's do one more. Beautiful. Now from here, we're moving into our pigeon pose. Now you may want to find a little bit of adjustment here based on how tight you may be feeling in the outside of the hips or the piriformis that goes along your back. I'm sorry, from your glutes down to your hips. So ways to make this less intense, you can scoot your hips a little further away from the wall, or you could climb that left foot a little bit higher on the wall as you take the right ankle over the right thigh. Now, in order to make that happen, you may have to lift the hips up entirely in order to sink back down into it. So if this doesn't feel comfortable, again, play with any of those modifications or options that I gave you. And then from here, you're going to think about sending that right knee away from you. So just a variation of pigeon. A lot of times we'll do pigeon face down. This gives you a little bit more range over making it more or less intense, which you may need, especially if you've been really tight and sitting for a long period of time. You may need to make it a little bit less intense. And then, of course, the benefit, again, of having that left foot pressing into the wall is that you're getting a little bonus decompression for that spine. All right, gently releasing out of that, it's time to find pigeon pose on the other side. Noticing if one side feels tighter than the other. Maybe your driving foot is more tight or less tight than your opposite foot. Easing into it. Really thinking about pressing the hips down towards the ground, lengthening tailbone down towards the earth. This is just as much about the back as it is about the piriformis, the hips. Lengthening with every inhale, every exhale. Good. Now from here, we're going to take both the soles of the feet together so that it's only the outer edges of the feet that are pressing into that wall. And knees bend and then fall open to the side, forming a little diamond shape here, or a butterfly pose. Pressing those knees away from each other, towards the wall. And then gently taking those legs long. So from here, you're going to have to kind of scoot yourself forward. We want to take the hips all the way up to the wall. You may even find you want to sit up and then sit sideways right next to the wall before you twist back. So taking those hips as close as possible to the wall. Legs are going to come all the way up the wall here, taking the torso out long. Now you can stay here, or if you'd like to come into splits, your supine splits, you could go ahead and start to take the legs out into a straddle. My wall is not really wide enough here to do that completely, so I'm just going to take my legs up the wall. So allowing the blood to circulate, returning from the feet back in towards the heart. It's great for boosting circulation. Just finding a place of steadiness, of relief, of ease. Taking a moment to celebrate the season, to drink it all in after the hustle and bustle of everything that was on our to-do list. Ushering in a new season. Giving gratitude for everything and everyone that's important to us. And then gently hugging the knees in. Give yourself a little hug. Taking knees in one direction, drawing little circles, and then move in the opposite direction. Rolling over to one side. Press yourself now up into seated, finding a gentle cross-legged easy pose. I am so proud of you for taking this time during the busy, bustling holiday season to pause and refresh and renew your body and your spirit. May you be filled with the light of the holidays, the warmth of the promise of spring, and the excitement and opportunity of a new year. Namaste.